Hello, and welcome to Connecting Jewish Grandparents, the Grand Plan podcast. Before we dive into today's episode, are you part of my mailing list? If you're not, hop down into the show notes or go to grandplan.kit.com and get on it. Each week, I send out inspirational Jewish thoughts on grandparenthood. This coming week, I am honored to have some of these reflections shared in Torah Tidbits, which is the OU, the Orthodox Union's weekly publication. So, some of the insights I share with you, different ones, will be broadcast throughout the Jewish world in writing. And if you don't know me off of this platform, writing is really one of my passions. I have three published children's books and I enjoy writing regularly. So if nothing else, sign up for my weekly newsletter. Look for Torah tidbits this week. All right, into today's podcast. Most of us carry an unspoken but deeply thought about, or occasionally thought about, picture of who our children will be. Really, from the moment you start imagining your child, before they're even conceived, you probably have some thoughts and hopes and dreams for who they will become. And then they are your children. And then later for your grandchildren. These dreams about career and values, religious path, family structure, even their temperament. I had a friend who said, like, why do people gender test babies before they're born? The gender says so little about who this creature will become. But here's the thing, that idea of who they will become, that dream, is hard to hold when the person they become is not at all who you expected. And I don't mean that you are disappointed in who your children and grandchildren are, but can you be incredibly proud and a little disappointed at the same time? Can you be? Have you ever been? All right, let's take it to this week's Torah portion of Vayechi. We have Yaakov, the last of our patriarchs, and he knows that he's approaching the end of his days. He's old, his strength is fading, but his clarity is still sharp. I hope you are in a similar situation. Not that your strength is fading, but that your clarity is still there. And you're able to live every joyous day of your life like maybe it's the end. But Yaakov decided that it is the end, and he gathers his sons together to give them his last words, to give them blessings. And he gives each son a very personalized message. Now, if you've learned Vayechi, if you've read it in depth, or if you've just looked it over, you will see that it's confusing, poetic, chaotic. Some of it is praise and some of it is rebuke. Some of it is clear and some of it is like clandestine and confusing. It's certainly not one size fits all in the brachot that Yaakov gives his sons. These are not aspirational blessings. They're honest ones. Yaakov takes this time to bless the sons that he has, not the sons that he once hoped for. I want to sit with that for just a minute because I don't think there's a stage of life where we don't wonder at who our offspring are, how they came to be the way they are, because they're never an exact reflection of us or our spouse. And you see glimpses that bring you the greatest joy in the world. But to say there's never heartache, never confusion or frustration. So instead of just saying they might be different than you, let's get a little more specific. You might be holding a child who chose a different religious path than you, a grandchild who's growing up in a world you do not fully understand, and maybe you feel like you don't understand at all. And maybe you're observing the unfolding of a family structure that you never anticipated. And your frustration or disappointment, or I'm not even sure of the other words, but the feelings that don't just bring joy, do they then bring guilt that looking at your family doesn't only bring happiness? That the reality not aligning with your vision is hard to hold? But I want to reframe this because I think it's crucial. You know what doesn't align to your vision, but you also know, you need to know, and you really do know that disappointment does not cancel love. And love does not require agreement. And love definitely does not require the manifestation of your vision of what your family will be or should be. And we're looking at Yaakov at the end of his life when he is really in his last moments reflecting on it. But think about the blessings that you give. And I don't just mean blessing, in the traditional sense, but the words that you give to your family members. A blessing is not an endorsement. It is not control. Speaking in this way, to your children or grandchildren is being present in who you are without rewriting the person in front of you. I want to be clear because I'm not just talking about in a blessing. I really mean in every conversation, in every connection, in every moment that you are having with your extended family, your children, the person they married, or their partner, or whatever, and your grandchildren. You're being present with them without trying to make them somebody different than who they are is a blessing for them and for you. Yaakov sits with his sons and he does not try to fix them. He has every right and reason to be disappointed, heartbroken, you name it, about what his sons have done, that they've lied to him their whole lives practically about Yosef. He could have done, said, walked away, and he doesn't. He sits with them, he accepts them for who they are, and he speaks his truth. And then he lets go. I'd like to think this isn't just aspirational. I'd like to think of it as inspirational and maybe even feasible. So, what does this mean for us as parents, as grandparents, in our conversations with our loved ones? We are talking about outcomes and qualities. Okay? We're looking at the details in the picture. I guess I feel like maybe I'm not saying it well enough because I think it's aspirational. So let me break it into a very micro piece. When you are feeling disappointed, really with anybody, and it hurts to be in the conversation because of your disappointment, you have no choice but to reframe at least a small part. To be present in that conversation with some level of positivity, you are going to look at the positive qualities and you're going to look at the strengths and you're going to look at what is there. And then in that way, you can really shift, at least begin that shifting process. What I talk about in my article this week, which I recommend you get, is really about the power of grandparenthood and how those blessings can and will be passed down generationally and intergenerationally. What Yaakov does with his great power of grandparenthood. You have this gift and opportunity beyond words. I'd like to think Yaakov used it well. His words are there in the Torah. But maybe afterwards he thought, oh, I shouldn't have said it like that. And he is speaking with a level of prophecy and time for reflection. So when you've said the words and they haven't come out quite right, give yourself a lot of credit. You're trying to be present. You're trying to have the conversation. But legacy is not about molding the next generation in our image. I don't think that any of Yaakov's sons are a direct reflection of him. But when he gets to the moment of blessing his grandsons, which actually happens before he blesses his sons, Ephraim and Menashe, he crosses his hands. And Yosef's like, no, no, not like that. And Yaakov says, yes, like that. I can see my grandsons for who they are. I see the potential within them. I see their strengths. That's where a grandparent gift is. This is where we shine. It's about offering love that can be there even when the picture isn't what you imagined. This emotional reframing and accepting the art of the world around you when it's not the art you envisioned. This is the work that I love to do in Grand Plan. This work is not easy, but it's incredibly fulfilling. We're not fixing families, but we're helping love flow more freely. This week, I hope, I pray, and I bless you that you're able to reframe the small things and see the positivity when it doesn't align with exactly what you would like it to be. And that runs the gamut in everything from the posture that people stand with to the words they use to them not hanging up their wet towel. Like it's so many small things that are just small things. and there is so much to love in its place. So that really does wrap out most of what I want to say. But I really hope that you sign up for my articles if you don't get it. Pick up a Tar Tidbits and share this. Share this incredible work that we do in Grand Plan, but the potential of grandparents through Jewish lenses. And I mentioned earlier in the episode that children and grandchildren do not necessarily take the same Jewish path that we do. And you can tell that I take one Jewish path, but I wanted to be very clear how inclusive and how much I believe in looking at things through Jewish lenses. So no matter where you, the listener, are, and no matter where your children and grandchildren are, it's about looking at it through Jewish lenses because it's the greatest gift that we have. Have a wonderful week. Check things out in the show notes or grandplan.kit.com.